This question from a viewer from Owensboro, Ms. Featherstone, I'll give this to you. This person says, quote, "One of the biggest problems I see is farmers unwilling to give up land to build." Is that oversimplification?
Not really. There are a lot of people that are unwilling to give up some of their land, and it's the NIMBY thing, you know, not in my backyard again. And I think that maybe incentivizing some of these places to allow us to do something and bringing forth some good ideas, it's possible to just sit down with people and just try to explain to them the benefits of maybe you don't have to sell the whole farm, maybe just sell off a portion of it or something like that. So yeah, a lot of people are holding on to things right now because they don't know what the future holds. And we can understand that. But I think when you look at the homeless problem and you look at the house attainability as far as financials go, we've got to do something, and it's going to take a broad effort with everybody across the area to get this thing done.
You have to think about the infrastructure, right? And all land being ready to have a neighborhood or a large subdivision, right? There's more than just putting houses on some open farmland.
No.
There's a lot of other considerations to make.
You have a lot of money that has to go into laying out a land to make sure that you've got your sewer and your water and your electricity and things, and those things take quite a bit of time to put together, yes.
I think that that's a really important point, because it isn't just as simple as saying we're going to sell off 50 acres and build 100 homes. That's what I hope as we go into the budget cycle, not this coming session, but the next, that when we're looking at the road plan and thinking about how we're going to redevelop, that we can prioritize putting money into areas where infrastructure needs to be developed. Because one of the interesting things that we've heard in the task force so far is about the number of people who are commuting from one city to another area in order to work. And what that tells me is that people are willing to go the distance, but how do we connect the Winchester worker to Lexington? Can we build out Winchester Road, for example, and make that more attractive for home building? Not every single farm area in Kentucky is ripe for that, but there are priorities that we could do in our budgeting process so that we really maximize our infrastructure growth, and then the housing growth can follow.
Well, and also public transit, right? Because maybe people don't want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours on the road trying to get from point A to point B, right? And so it's more than just the building itself. It is the water, the sewer, and the transportation, which that seems like a tougher juggernaut dealing with transportation, public transit.
Well, and to Charles' point, where we do have a sense of urgency where we do this, but there can be layers where maybe our first priority is where the public transit, you know, focus on the density where the public transit already is. Where the infrastructure already is, so that we can really focus on those areas to build density to just a quick fix, because this is a long-term issue. It's not going. It didn't get created in a year or two, and it's not going to go away in a year or two. So we just have to really be disciplined and fix what we can fix, and then have a road plan for 5, 10, 20 years down the road.
Mr. All.
Yeah, I think when you think about the challenges of trying to build more housing with a lot of agricultural land, or when you're trying to build a lot of housing with other geographical limitations like mountains, lakes, rivers, those are very real things. We heard about them as we kind of toured the state, learning more about housing challenges in different parts of Kentucky. That's where I think something that Mayor Greenberg actually brought up when he presented to the Housing Task Force last week that actually could help a lot of these rural communities, which is thinking a little more about light touch density. And what we mean by that are things like duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, patio homes, that type of living arrangements. Those are ways where you can have very comfortable homes, but also bring in a little bit more of that density. But another thing, going back to the infrastructure conversation, you know, we have a great program in Kentucky for site-ready economic development, so KPDI. Seeing a version of that focused more on residential housing would be a really nice program. What I would like to see, though, is to have a program like that that prioritizes communities that are taking proactive steps to make sure that their land use and zoning regulations are ready for more housing. And so that's a good way where we can think about incentivizing some of those regulatory changes at the local level that we're wanting to see to allow for more things like duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and so on.
Right. It was an insightful conversation last night that also touched on possible solutions to Kentucky's housing crisis. You can see all of that online on demand at ket.org/KY tonight.